Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala al-Rasul al-Kareem, wa ba'ad. Alhamdulillah, we are now moving forward from ayah 15 on in Surah Al-Kahf, the 18th surah. Imam ibn Al-Jawzi, rahimahullah, in his text ul-Masir Fi Ilm it-Tafsir, he says the following regarding this matter. He says, quote, "And when Allah the Exalted has said, and we shall surely narrate to them their news," meaning the news regarding the tribulation that the people suffered, "in truth, and we increased them in guidance, so they were established on Iman, and their hearts were filled with patience, so that they were able to withstand what the king Daqyanus was going to do. They said, 'Our Lord, Lord of the skies and the earth.' So that is that they don't call on any people or worship anyone but Allah. Daqyanus was calling the people to the worship of idols, but Allah protected these people so that they were able to disobey their king. Al-Hasan al-Basri mentions, they stood among the people calling to Tawheed. And this was their statement when they gathered together outside of the city to try to bring the people to the truth. So the oppression that they suffered was a result of their calling. As Zajjaj has said, so when we say that someone has suffered tyranny, we refer to the fact that the man suffers from fitna, which is tyranny or testing. And they said, these are our people. What those are speaking meant by these are our people are that in the time of Daqyanus, those were their people. And they took from besides Allah gods, meaning they worshipped idols. And there came to them, because of their worship of idols, tribulations. And in addition to this, their worship of the idols was without any authority from Allah. The unbelievers leave the senses of their intellect and fair differentiation and use emotional arguments when confronted with the wickedness of that which they are doing, because they know that what it is that they are doing is wrong and there is no basis for it. Just as much as when Allah says, "And who is more oppressive than the one who makes a lie against Allah with clear intent?" The lie against Allah being referred to is the lie in which they claim that there is a partner for Allah. Now let's look at the next section where Allah the Exalted has said, وَإِذِ اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ وَمَا يَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا اللَّهَ فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ يَنشُرْ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ مِنْ رَحْمَتِهِ وَيُهَيِّئْ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَمْرِكُمْ مَرْفَقًا وَتَرَى الشَّمْسَ إِذَا طَلَعَتْ تزاور عن كهفهم ذات اليمين وإذا غربت تقرضهم ذات الشمال وهم في فجوة منه ذلك من آيات الله من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وتحسبهم أيقاظا وهم رقود ونقلبهم ذات اليمين وذات الشمال وكلبهم باسط ذراعيه بالوصيد لو اطلعت عليهم لوليت منهم فرارا وملئت منهم رعبا وكذلك بعثناهم ليتساءلوا بينهم قال قائل منهم كم لبثتم قالوا لبثنا يوما أو بعض يوم قالوا ربكم أعلم بما لبثتم فبعثوا أحدكم بورقكم هذه إلى المدينة فلينظر أيها أزكى طعاما فليأتكم برزق منه وليتلطف ولا يشعرن بكم أحدا إنهم إن يظهروا عليكم يرجموكم أو يعيدوكم في ملتكم ولن تفلحوا إذا أبدا. And when you isolated yourselves from them and all of what they worshipped besides Allah, then pull away to the cave, so your Lord might spread out to you of his mercy, and that he might show tenderness to you regarding your condition and your affair. You will see the sun when it rises. It will encircle over the cave on the right, and when it sets, it will encircle on the left. And they were in the deep recess of the cave. That is from the signs of Allah. Whoever Allah guides, then he's guided. And whoever he leads astray, then there's no one who can be a protector or guide. If you had seen them, you would have thought at the time of their sleeping that they were awake, because they were in a reclining position. And they were turned towards the right and towards the left. The dog had his paws spread with his legs spread out sitting. And had you come to them, you would have turned away from them fleeing and felt great terror at the spectacle that you saw. Likewise, we raised them up so that they might be asked among them. One of them said, "How long have we been like this?" The other said, "We must have been like this a day or part of a day." Others said, "No, your Lord knows best about how long we stayed like this. One of you should go out with some coins to the city, so that you might look and see which is the best food that can be taken. Then come with sustenance from them, and show goodness, and no one of them should be aware of your whereabouts or who you are. Be sure to disguise yourself. But if they manifest upon you that they might see you and recognize who you are, they will stone you, or they will try to force you to return back to their religion. And you'll never be successful if they try to do that. Be sure to hide yourselves." Surah Al-Kahf, the 18th Surah, ayat 16 to 20. So when you isolated yourselves from them, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, this is the statement of Yamliha, who was the head of the group of the people of the cave. He said to them, when you isolate yourselves, meaning when you contradict and go away from the worshippers of idols, and they worship from besides Allah, and you stay away from whatever is worshipped from besides Allah, because the people were worshiping Allah but also worshiping gods along with him. So the youths pulled away from the idols and their worship, but they didn't pull away from the worship of Allah. And this was explained by Ata al-Khurasani and al-Farra. And they worship besides Allah those people in their time, as mentioned by Qatada. This was discussed by Ibn Abbas, by Abdullah ibn Mas'ud in his commentary of the ayah, and also in his recitation. So flee to the cave, make that your home, and Allah will spread out his mercy to you, meaning he will give you his sustenance. He will show you his tender mercies. The recitation of this ayah, according to Ibn Kathir, Abu Amr, Asim, Hamza, and Al-Kasai, is at the ending of it, mirfaqa, in which the meme has a maksur sound and the fa is maftuh. However, Nafi' and Ibn Amr recite it as marfiqa, in which the meme is maftuh and the fa is maksur. Al-Farra has said the people of the Hijaz recite it as marfiqa, and this has the way that it has been recited. Now, marfiqa is used for animals, and mirfiqa and mirfaqa is used for people. So the Arabs make this clear distinction. Ibn al-Ambari says that the ayah's meaning is that their difficult situation, they will receive tenderness and mercy no matter what happens. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said that the ayah is referring to the fact that Allah shall make easy for them their condition and protect them from having any further fear of the king or his oppression, and that they will not be rendered incapable. When Allah says, and you will see the sun, and you'll see the sun when it rose. So Allah in this ayah, although it says and you with a wow, in this content it means if you had seen it, you would have seen what was described. Because the ayah is addressing the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The recitation of tazawaru, according to Ibn Kathir, Nafi', Abu Amr, is tazawaru. So the zay is a doubled sound. But Asim, Hamza, and Al-Kasai recited as tazawaru, and Ibn Amr recited tazwarru. Tazwarru. As for Ibn Ubay ibn Ka'ab, Abu Majlis, Abu Rija, and Al-Juhdi, they say tazwarru. While Ibn Mas'ud, Abu al-Mutawakkil, and Ibn al-Sumayfa' say tazwa'iru. So these are the recitations and ways that it can be recited and given. When Allah says, and it passes over on the left side the sun at its rising point, the sun at its setting point, this is showing you the orientation of the cave. Scholars of commentary say the cave was actually facing the area near the land of Byzantium. So the sun, when it rose and when it set, the full heat did not enter into the cave so as to bother them by its heat or change their color. So they were in a location where they could see the sun, but in the daytime they had the coolness of the wind, and in the nighttime they were not affected by the wind and they were still kept warm. It also shows that the sun, them being protected from it, is a sign from Allah's signs. He did not want the cave to be a place of imprisonment to where they would not survive. So what Allah did with them, when He says this is from the signs of Allah, is from Allah's subtleties in His guiding them, keeping the sun from hurting them, and the terror which came to them because they fled from the oppressive king, and other things. The fact that they survived all of this and Allah protected them is from His signs, evidences of His power. So whoever Allah guides, then He's guided. This shows that He is the one who gives guidance to the people. And had it not been for Him, no one would receive guidance. Allah then says, if you had seen them, you would have thought that they were awake. Meaning that you would have thought that they were fully aware, as said by Az-Zajjaj, because they would have appeared to be awake, although their eyes being open, they were asleep. The people of knowledge say that the wisdom in leaving their eyes open is so that they would always appear as if they were awake and scare away any possible onlookers. And so they were turned right and left. On their right and on their left. They would turn every day twice. They would stay, and every year they would turn over twice. Once every 6 months they would roll over. So the first 6 months they would be on the right side. Another 6 months they would be on the left. So that the earth did not cause their bodies to become corrupted. Mujahid said 300 years they were on one side. Then they were turned over for the last 9 years. Close quote. Something very significant here is they're kept on the right side for 6 months. Then they were made to roll over onto their left side. Now, you know, if you go to a hospital, when someone is ill or in convalescence, they do what? They rotate the body. If someone is immobile and they're in the hospital bed in convalescence, they have to rotate the body. Why? Because the blood collects and congeals in an area. They can't reach the bedpan. They have these other things. They have to rotate the body. They have to roll the mattress over. So they have to get them up once every so often, flip the mattress over, not just for cleaning's sake, but because of what? Because of bed sores. If the body lays in the bed in one position without movement, they get bed sores. And this flesh also starts to get eaten away because the body is stationary. It's not moving. Now, these people were there for 309 years. So Allah kept them moving. Now, this is before we had anything to do with the Journal of American Medical Association Science magazine. These are things that are being told to us by the scholars of Tafsir and the companions before we had this knowledge. Galen didn't have this knowledge. Aristotle didn't have this knowledge. Eratosthenes didn't have this information, that turning bodies especially keeps the blood from congealing and bed sores, especially over long periods of time, and that you can get away with doing it if the processes and as well as the conditions are right. So the Imam rahimahullah, he then says, quote, "As for the statement of Allah, and their dog, his paws were spread out. So the dog looked similar to them in that it was sleeping like them. It appeared to be awake." Now, it's been mentioned by Ibn Abbas as well as Sa'id ibn Jubayr, Mujahid al-Dahaq, Qatada and al-Farra, that its paws were laid out and it was seated, staring forward, as if acting as a guard over them. So someone coming in and seeing them might think that the dog is standing guard and that it's facing the door, expecting a possible enemy, crouching to attack. And that is the reality of this matter. Allah then says to his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "And if you had happened upon them, you would have turned away and fled out of fright." Asim and Ibn Amr and Abu Amr and Hamza and Al-Kasai say that the ayah is recited, وَلَا مُلِئْتَ, while Ibn Kathir and Nafi' say, وَلَا مُلِئْتَ. So this is the different ways it can be recited. When Allah says you would have turned away from them in fright, that is because Allah has protected them from their captors by means of putting fear into other people so that no one comes to them. So if someone had seen them and examined them, they would have felt fear and went back because they would have thought they were in a wakeful state. Likewise, Allah says that we resurrected them. We did with them just as we wanted. They were resurrected them from that sleep so that they might ask one another and dispute and differ about the affair. One of them questioned, "How many years have passed over us in this cave?" well, and some said maybe a day or half a day, because they entered in the afternoon time and Allah resurrected them in the last part of the day. So because of this, some of them thought, well, maybe a day or a part of a day. So when they saw the sun, they said, wait a minute, maybe it was a part of a day. Others among them said, our Lord knows best how long we stayed there. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, the one who said our Lord knows best was Yamlicha, their leader, because he referred all knowledge back to Allah the Exalted, and he was the most knowledgeable of their group and their Emir. Another statement, though, is that it was another person of their group whose name was Mekselmina, and he was the eldest of them. Abu Sulaiman al-Damashqi said, however, irrespective of who it was, it's necessary that all knowledge be deferred back. But they came to know that they certainly must have stayed longer than that, which is why they were disputing. Because they saw that their hair and their nails had grown substantially. Because the ayah, when it mentions قَالُوا رَبُّكُمْ أَعْمَلُ بِلَا مَذْوِثْتُمْ, and the ayah before قَالُوا لَبِثْنَا يَوْمًا أَوْ بَعْضَ يَوْمٍ, the fact that they settled upon the second statement, Allah knows best however long we stayed, means that they could clearly see that they'd stayed longer than that because their bodies were different in the sense of hair growth as well as nails. So then they said, send forth one of yourselves so that you might go forward and see. So they wanted someone among them with rank, the best of them, to go forward with the expression used as biwariqikum, with wariq. Now this ayah has been recited by Ibn Kathir, Nafi', Ibn Amir, Al-Kasai, and Hafs and Asim as biwariqikum, where the ra is maksura. However, Abu Amr, Hamza, Abu Bakr from Asim have said biwarqikum, and from Abu Amr it's warqikum. Az-Zajjaj said, this matter shows that there is a permitted way that this ayah can be recited in more than one way. The wariq is the method that the way of reciting it as wariq is from the people of the Hijaz, whereas the Tamim, they say waraq, and some of the Arabs, they say wiraq, or they say wirq, or wariq. But irrespective, the different recitations are sound. So send them with the coins to the city. And when they went out from it, they went forward to the city. The name of the city at that time, the city that they had left from, and the city that one of them was to go back into, at the time it was called Daqsus. The city today is called Tarsus. Close quote. Now, Daqsus and Tarsus, in English, the name for that is Tarsus. Tarsus is not far from Ephesus. This is in Turkey today. So Tarsus and Ephesus are in Turkey. This is where Turkey is today. So these events that took place, scholars of commentary indicate that it would have been Turkey, right? And the city was Tarsus, which at that time and thousands of years ago was a place where shipbuilding was done. It was a major maritime port. Shipbuilding was done there. And Ephesus is a city where a lot of people were buried. It's said that Maryam as-Siddiqa alayhi salam is buried in Ephesus. I've not been there to check for sure or to know for a surety, but it's mentioned that Maryam as-Siddiqa alayhi salam is buried in Ephesus. Now the Imam rahimahullah, he then says, quote, the ayah where Allah says, so see that it, whichever it is. As the judge says, meaning its people. Which people have the best food? Now, the best food, azka ta'ama, mentioned in the ayah. Scholars of commentary say it's referring to who slaughters food in a halal manner, because this might have been meat. To make sure this food is halal, as mentioned by Ibn Abbas, Ata, because they knew that all the people of their land were unbelievers, and that they used to slaughter their meat for the sake of idols. And there were small groups of people among them that disguised and hid their faith. It was also referring to the fact the purest food, the best food, because most of the wealth of the people was stolen. And so this made the food to be not permissible, although it was halal on all other accounts. Mujahid has said, they said to their companion going out on their behalf, do not seek food that has any oppression or theft associated with it. Furthermore, the purest food is also referring to the most food. What can you get for the best price? As said by Ikrimah. Also, Qatada says it's a reference to the best food, the most noble food, the purest food, and the cheapest food. So, take this and take what you need so you can get the sustenance so that you might eat from it. And look carefully at it so that way you go forward. Make sure to keep yourself out of the gaze of people. وَلْيَتَلَطَّفْ, keep yourself away from the gaze of people. وَلَا يُشْعِرَنَّ بِكُمْ, so that they might not recognize you and that your place of exit or entry might not be known. Because if they come to know about you, they will certainly stone you. This is referring to the fact that they will kill you, as mentioned by Ibn Abbas as the judge, by stoning. Or that they will kill you with their bare hands, as said by Al-Hasan al-Basri. Or it could also be referring to the fact that they will not only kill you with their bare hands, but also kill you with their tongues by slander and false charges, as discussed by Mujahid and Ibn Jurayj. Then they will return you to their religion, and you will not be successful after that, because if you return to their religion, you will have no salvation in this life nor in the hereafter. Close quote. Now there's something important about this particular ayah that was discussed by the scholars of the past, that they stated that based upon looking at this ayah, wariqikum, your wariq, that this ayah is a reference also to the fact that the means of currency that has always been used has been gold, silver, or copper coins. So there's always been something that people have been trading with. And the scholars of today have discussed that, therefore, to have paper fiat currency is not permitted to use as a means of currency because of the fact that it doesn't represent real value, right? And this has already been discussed in books of fiqh in quite a amount of detail. Now, if one is forced, then one is forced. But it is something where it's being used as a deception of the people. Now, Imam al-Jawzi, rahimahullah, he then says, quote, and the Exalted One says, further of this affair, as they were speaking before sending him out, they said, وَكَذَلِكَ أَعْثَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ لِيَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ وَأَنَّ السَّاعَةَ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهَا إِذْ يَتَنَازَعُونَ بَيْنَهُمْ أَمْرَهُمْ
فقالوا بنوا عليهم بنيانا ربهم أعلم بهم قال الذين غلبوا على أمرهم لنتخذن عليهم مسجدا سيقولون ثلاثة رابعهم كلبهم ويقولون خمسة سادسهم كلبهم رجما بالغيب ويقولون سبعة وثامنهم كلبهم قل ربي أعلم بعدتهم ما يعلمهم إلا قليل فلا تمار فيهم إلا مراء ظاهرا ولا تستفت فيهم منهم أحدا ولا تقولن لشيء إني فاعل ذلك غدا إلا أن يشاء الله واذكر ربك إذ نسيت وقل عسى أن يهديني ربي لأقرب من هذا رشدا ولبثوا في كهفهم 300 سنين وازدادوا 9 قل الله أعلم بما لبثوا له غيب السماوات والأرض أبصر به وأسمع ما لهم من دونه من ولي ولا يشرك في حكمه أحدا واتلو ما أوحي إليك من كتاب ربك لا مبدل لكلماته ولن تجد من دونه ملتحدا.
And likewise, we caused the matter to become clear to them so that they might know that the promise of Allah is true and that the hour there is no doubt in it. That which they were disputing among themselves on their affair. They said, go to them clearly. Your Lord knows best about them. So those who they came to their affair, they took the place as a masjid in later age. And they said, there were 3 sleepers of the cave. Their dog was the 4th. Those later generations also said, no, there were 5. The dog was the 6th. Others say, no, there were 7. The 8th was the dog. Say, my Lord knows best regarding their number. And He only lets them know a little bit. Do not debate in this affair except no one debates in this affair except by disputation, and do not seek to refute anyone with any false reasoning. Do not say of this affair, oh, I'm certainly going to do this tomorrow, except that you precede it by saying, if Allah wills. Remember your Lord when you forget, and say, it may be that my Lord guide me so that I might be near from this matter and be guided right. Those sleepers in the cave remained therein for 300 years, and there was an increase of 9. Say, Allah knows best of their remaining therein. He has the unseen of the skies and the earth. Be sure that you see and hear. And they have no one besides them to give them protection. And He, Allah, does not associate in His judgment with anyone. Recite what has been revealed to you from the book of your Lord. There is no way to replace His words, and you will not find anyone besides Him as a protector. Surah Al-Kahf, the 18th surah, ayats 21 to 27. So the Exalted One, He says, So likewise, just as we resurrected you, then you have likewise been protected. And this is a sign that Allah gave so that you might know that the people of their land, when they were disputing regarding the resurrection, Allah then sent the people of the cave out to them. And when they saw this, then they knew these people who had lived before were resurrected. So the promise of Allah of resurrection and reward is true. The day of resurrection, there's no doubt about it. And this is the understanding of the vast majority of commentators. The second is that the people of the cave, they were resurrected so that they might see after their knowledge that the promise of Allah is true. The people of that time were disputing. So they were disputing, and it was possible that they were disputing about different affairs regarding the building that they had in the masjid. The Muslims said, build over them a masjid because they're on our religion. But the idol worshippers, when seeing this regarding the sleepers of the cave, said, no, just build a building because they're from the people of our time. And so this was stated by Ibn Abbas. People differed regarding the resurrection. The Muslims said both the body and the soul will be resurrected. But the idol worshippers in that time said, no, only the souls will be resurrected without the bodies. And Allah will see the resurrection of the souls and the bodies. But instead, the people were shown that both the soul and the body are resurrected. This was mentioned by Ikrimah. They also disputed about the youths that had gone into the cave. And they disputed about how long they remained there. They disputed the number of youths. So when it was said, so build for them something, the idol worshippers of that time said, well, let's build something over them. Because when they saw the people of the cave, they had converted to Islam and they wanted to build something in honor of them. But others said, no. The king and his companions who were believers said, let's build a masjid. Sa'id ibn Jubair said, the king built over them a small place of prayer. Then after that, some of them said, those who were disputing in their affairs said, well, there were three. And the fourth of them was the dog. The Christians of Najran held this position when they disputed with the Messenger of Allah ﷺ about the number of the sleepers of the cave. The Malachite rite said that they are three. The fourth of them is the dog. The Jacobites said, no, the five of them. The sixth is the dog. The Nestorians said, no, seven. And the eighth is the dog. So then Allah sent down this ayah. Because those Christians from Najran and those other places, those people belong to their city. But these people had uncertain ideas about the hereafter, whether they were the Malachites or others. Close quote. Now, something very important. When we're talking about this, you have to remember that by the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the Christianity that we know of, the 7 rites of Christianity had already formed. Now, one of these is when it says that the Melekite, which is Melekite, the Melekite rite said there are 3, and the fourth of them was the dog. The Melekite is what we now tend to call Catholic, because because Melekite means imperial. So that's all of your Catholic figures, whether it's the Roman Rite or the Byzantine Rite. The Jacobite is practiced in Iraq, and the Nestorian is also practiced. This is named after Yaqub Nestor, who was a Christian prelate and patriarch. And the Jacobite is named after the Jacobite Rite, which is named after another famous monk. So these rites of Christianity were already present. So when they came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, we believe this, we believe that, you had representative Christianity that was there at the time. Now when you speak to people about this,
Protestants in the United States will say, well, that's not the correct representation of Christianity. Your response should be, well, then there should have been Protestants 1400 years ago that could have represented yourself. But unfortunately, you came out around the 1460s. And at that time, there weren't any Protestants. So this was the only Christianity that was there. So Protestantism, often when Protestants are disputing with Muslims about certain things in the Quran, they say, well, I've never heard of that. Of course you wouldn't, because your Christianity is only about 400 years old. Protestantism, the Anglican Church, evangelicals, Seventh-day Adventists, all these groups spun out of the original movement of Protestantism that came from the Protestant Reformation, which came from Martin Luther. Martin Luther started the process of the Reformation. He was an Augustinian Catholic monk. After a heavy study of Christianity and the original languages, he felt that the Catholic Church was the Antichrist, and that the Pope was the Antichrist or the beast mentioned in the book of Revelation. So that meant that the church was in apostasy. So we had to re-preach Christ. Now, other people came out around that time. People after him, you had Zwingli, Knox, Calvin, Wesley, all these different figures that form different sections of Christianity. Protestantism came here, and so the Anglican Church was formed. So when you are speaking with Protestants, if you're speaking with a Catholic, especially when they do the old Aramaic Mass and everything else, they know what the sleepers of the cave are. They know exactly what you're talking about. The Ethiopian Christians know exactly what you're talking about. If they speak Ge'ez and they do their Mass and other things, they know exactly what you're talking about. The Protestants don't know what you're talking about because their Christianity goes back to Martin Luther. They're cut off. They don't have that old understanding, which is precisely why the scholars of commentary and others say that because the rest of the Christian world doesn't see them as Christians, we don't either. So they don't qualify as people of the book because they're apostates from their own religion. Because the different Catholic rites, the Jacobite, even Nestorians say that these people here, the Protestants, are heretics. Because Protestant is protestante, because they were protesting against the Council of Trent. So they say these people, and the Council of Trent was nothing but the restating of the Catholic doctrine. So by rejecting that, you're rejecting all the churches of the East. So what are you? You're an apostate. So they wouldn't have this information. The oldest Protestant commentaries, 1800s, 1700s, 1600s, they're known as the Great Expositors. These people came out around the 1600s. They had to write new commentaries on the Bible because they couldn't use any of the Catholic ones. Right? We'll go over one last ayah, and inshallah then we'll break for Salah. The Imam rahimahullah, he then says, and another group say that it was 8, it was 7, and the eighth of them was the dog. Now, we need to understand that their entrance into the cave and their exiting, some of the Christians saw that this was all one event. But some thought that, no, the entrance was one date and the exit was another date. You need to consider this matter very carefully, because after Allah narrating that they don't know the exact number, Allah then cuts short the rest of the narrative, because the discussion on this matter is now complete. And this was mentioned by Muqatil ibn Sulaiman, because the wow that's been given shows وَكَلْبُهُمْ وَثَامِنُهُمْ كَلْبُهُمْ, and finally there are 8 of them, and there were 7 of them. The eighth one was the dog. This means that is the end of that narrative. So this wow that has been put there is the ruling, the final statement. It's as if Allah has narrated all of their differences of opinion,
then stopped by saying, and they say 7, the 8th of them is the dog. Then he mentions the judgment, the 8th of them was the dog. And then some of the commentaries, the Muslims have said, at the time of the difference of the Christians, that they are 7, and Allah gave the judgment regarding what the Muslims should say. That the sleepers of the cave were 7, and the 8th was the dog. So the people should reflect on this affair carefully and think of this matter, because the reality is that there were 7 human beings and 1 dog. So then, consider this matter. The names of the sleepers of the cave are said to be the following. They are Maksal Mina, the second is Yamliha, the second sleeper of the cave is Yamliha. The third sleeper was Tarinus. The fourth sleeper was Sadinus. The fifth sleeper was Sarinus. The sixth sleeper was Nawasus. And the seventh sleeper was Uranus. Now, in the commentary regarding the difference of opinion regarding the names in some circles, I will not elongate that here in great detail. But I will say that there has been difference of opinion regarding their dog, according to the fact that they said that there was a shepherd who was passing by, and the shepherd and the dog were following, and the dog came with them. And they would sometimes use the dog for helping them to find food along the way to the cave. So the dog wound up following them. At some point, according to the narration of Ka'b ibn al-Ahbar, the dog had spoke to them when they started following the dog as it was leading them. What do you want from me? Do you not fear that I love those who love Allah? And so they continued to follow the dog. And they ultimately wound up following it into the cave. Now, there have been discussion on what's the name of the dog, according to what narrations do we have. Some have said the dog's name is Qitmir, as mentioned by Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhu. However, Qitmir is not the only name. It was mentioned by Sa'id ibn Jubair, that the dog's name was Raqim. It was also mentioned that the dog's name was Qatmur. This is from Abdullah ibn Kathir. The fourth is that the dog's name was Humran. This was said by Shu'aib al-Jubai. So these names in total were Qitmir, Raqim, Qatmur, and Humran. Now what's the description of the dog? Well, the description of the dog, according to narrations that we have, is one by Sufyan al-Thawri, says that the dog was red with shaggy fur. However, Ibn Ishaq narrates that the dog had yellow, saffron-colored fur. Another one says, though, Ibn Sa'ib, that the fur on the dog's head was red. Its back had black fur. And its belly had white fur. And it had a shaggy short tail. So, but we again say the statement that Allah said, "My Lord knows best regarding their number. And no one knows their number except a small amount of people," meaning no one knows their number except a small amount of people. Allah said, by small we mean the people of the book. Ibn Abbas said, I am from that small amount of people. And they were 7. That's why Allah stopped on the number 7, and He didn't dispute that number. So don't debate with them regarding the matter. No one would debate with them except someone who is full of disputation. So do not debate with them in this regard, as Ibn Abbas and Qatada have said. Take the narration that's been given regarding their affair from the Book of Allah. Don't debate regarding their number, because no one debates about that except someone who's filled with disputation. It's not as they say. It's not just as you know. It's not just as you say. It's just according to what Allah has said. So don't debate, except you use clear knowledge when you speak, because Allah will bring to bear what falsehood you have said, and you will be asked to account of it. And don't seek to make judgments regarding the people of the cave. Ibn Abbas said this is a statement of warning regarding the people of the book, because there were 2 groups of Christians, the Nestorians and the Jacobites. And the Prophet ﷺ, he asked them regarding their number, but he was forbidden from that because Allah knew that they would dispute with him. And this is the affair. Close quote. أقول قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم استغفر الله إن الله غفور رحيم الحمد الرحيمين. Inshallah, we will stop here and we will pray salah, and then we will return and complete
our final portions, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ba'd. Now, just very quickly, this then brings us then, because we discussed the sleepers of the cave. So then the question then comes, well then what should be our position on the sleepers of the cave? Well, the significance of the story of the sleepers of the cave, its theme is what? That Allah does as and when and what He wills, number one. Number two, it's a story about resurrection. That the resurrection of the dead, because people will often bring arguments and say, well, if resurrection of the dead's coming, what proof do we have that Allah has killed people and resurrected them down through the ages as an evidence repeatedly? Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam did it in triplicate, in which thousands of people, threes and threes and threes, and then thousands of people were resurrected in one sitting. Right? Nabiyyuna Ilyas alayhi salam resurrected people. Nabiyyuna Ilyasa alayhi salam resurrected people. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam resurrected people. We're not talking about that mentally they were on a substratum level and they were mentally resurrected. No, we mean dust and bones, rotting and smelling, and they were resurrected. That's what we mean. The sleepers of the cave are a classic example in which they, after 309 years, were resurrected. That wasn't the only case. Uzair, the great Israelite teacher and preacher, he was resurrected after being dead for 100 years, as we read in Surah Al-Bakri. So this has been shown. Allah keeps giving these examples that, look, things die, but I can bring them back anew, just as they had been before. And in the case of the sleepers of the cave and the Uzair is especially important because sleep, as the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "An-nawmu akhul maut," sleep is the brother of death. So the fact that they're laying with their eyes open, staring fixedly forward, is a reference to and a comparison to death. Because if you haven't seen someone physically die in front of you before, when someone dies, their eyes stay open. They have to be physically closed by someone else, unless rigor mortis is set in, which you might not be able to close their eyes. But when someone dies, particularly if they die a violent death, unless they faint before they pass out, their eyes are wide open. Right? So these are examples of revelation. Now, the 7 sleepers of the cave, Imam Al-Jawzi rahimahullah has already discussed the city that they came from and the city they came into, which is Tarsus, right? Not far from Ephesus in today's Turkey. But the names that have been given, but some people have attached additional things to them. Really, I would say to try not to get in too much dispute, not just with Christians, but with just other Muslims about the 7 sleepers in the cave, to not get into a big dispute about it, because they were historical people that lived, but the point of the story was not for us to come and debate about the narrative, but rather for us to learn that Allah does what He wills, how He wills, and that resurrection is true. Imam Al-Jawzi rahimahullah, he then says, quote, "Then we have the statement of Allah, do not say of anything, I will do that tomorrow. Rather say, only if Allah should so will." The reason for this ayah being sent down is that the Quraysh one day asked the Prophet ﷺ about Dhul Qarnayn, about the Ruh, and about the sleepers of the cave. And he said, tomorrow I will inform you of this. But he did not say, Insha'Allah. So because of this, the angel Jibreel alayhi salam was delayed for 15 days due to the fact that he left the statement of Insha'Allah. This was difficult for the Prophet ﷺ, but then Allah sent down this ayah. This has been mentioned from Ibn Abbas. So the meaning of this statement is, don't say of any matter, I'm definitely doing this or I'm going to do this tomorrow, but proceed it with, Insha'Allah. And remember your Lord when you forget. The meaning of this ayah, Ibn al-Ambari says, so remember your Lord at the time of forgetting. So you say, remember to the slave of Allah when he prays, after completing his prayer, remember your Lord. Don't be heedless after you've completed the prayer. Scholars of commentary say also that it means when you forget to say inshallah, then you remember, then say inshallah. Even if it was after a day or a month or 6 days or 6 months. This was stated by Sa'id ibn Al-Jubayr and the vast majority. The scholars of commentary also say, when you forget, meaning if you become angry, remember the name of Allah. Because the name of Allah should protect you from committing atrocities. Also, and this was mentioned by Ikrimah and Al-Ambari, when you forget something, then mention Allah's name. And if He wills, you will remember it. This is mentioned by Al-Mawardi. Now, the virtue of saying inshallah is that it protects the person from lying when what comes to pass does not come to pass. Look at the story of Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam. سَتَجِدُنِي إِن شَاءَ اللَّهُ صَابِرًا, and you will find me to be patient, if Allah wills. Surah Al-Kahf, the 18th surah, ayah 70. But he wasn't patient. But we wouldn't say he was a liar due to the fact that he preceded his statement by a condition, if Allah wills. There is no differing narration from Imam Ahmed that it's not valid for someone to use the conditional phrase inshallah regarding talaq or freeing a slave. Someone should not be saying, you are divorced inshallah, you are free inshallah, as that will certainly come to pass. So, it should be understood. For Imam Malik, he holds the position that this comes to pass because it's a conditional phrase. And Imams Abu Hanifa and Shafi'i say, when someone uses a conditional phrase in divorce or freeing a slave, that nothing happens. As far as making an oath by Allah and then having a conditional phrase, then this is permitted. This is different than the case of talaq. Likewise, using the conditional expression if Allah wills in all of what requires an expiation, like dhihar, like oaths, then this is permitted because talaq and freeing a slave are statements that initiate action immediately. But if someone connects it to a conditional expression, then we know of its existence. And the expression comes to pass, just like the rest of the oaths. It's not necessary for all judgments that they be preceded by the statement insha'Allah. But rather, it's necessary in affairs that insha'Allah be used because one does not know about the affair and one is ignorant of it. As much was related from Imam Ahmed and the vast majority of the scholars of fiqh. So this is permitted as well in the majlis that someone might say this, as said by Hasan al-Basri and Tawus, and narrated from Imam Ahmed. This affair has to be stated, as was said by Ibn Abbas, Mujahid, Sa'id ibn Jubayr, Abu al-Aliya, and Ibn Jarir al-Tabari has said the correct thing for a human being to do is that he uses the conditional phrase inshallah, even if it's after his falling short in an oath. Then he says inshallah to alleviate himself from that regarding the fact of what Allah mentioned in this ayah. So the difficulty falls from him. As far as the unbelievers, it doesn't fall from them to say inshallah because their oath of Allah's justice is not accepted from them because they're unbelievers. Further to this, expiations, someone is not cleared from doing something with an expiation by saying insha'Allah, because the expiation is something that's pre-required. Close quote. Now this is just something very quick then. So if someone had said, if Allah wills you're divorced, or if Allah wills we're married, or if Allah wills you're free,
These are statements that require action. And because you've attached it to a conditional expression, you've said, if Allah wills. So this is in Allah's power. Well, if you've said, if Allah wills, this is the same thing as making a positive confession regarding the matter. So if someone said to his wife, Inshallah, you're divorced, well, then you are. Because a positive confession of a conditional expression, if Allah wills, you are such and such, is the same thing as a positive statement. It's a confessional. Because this conditional phrase is based on Allah's might, power, and glory, and His strength. If someone wouldn't say, if they had to do an expiation, in the case of having sexual intercourse in Ramadan, Inshallah, I will do expiation if I break my fast. Then they break their fast having sexual intercourse in Ramadan. They can't say, because I said Inshallah, I'm exempt from expiation. No, you still are bound by the fact, because you can't say Inshallah of things that are already predetermined by Allah. For example, you can't say that anyone who dies believing in Allah, is bound for the paradise. Is this correct? Inshallah. No. Because it's already predetermined that Allah said anyone who dies on faith. That's not conditional. That's an absolute expression. If somebody dies worshiping idols, are they lost for all eternity? Inshallah. No. That's a permanent expression because Allah has already predetermined. Whoever dies associating partners with Allah is lost for all eternity. That's not an insha'Allahable, if you can use the verbal expression in the end. It's not an insha'Allahable affair to do that, because it's something that's already predetermined. Right? Allah is one, insha'Allah. You can say that. The Quran is true, insha'Allah. No. Because insha'Allah is used about affairs of which you do not have certain knowledge. So you can only carry out your obligation in that matter to the best of your ability. And then whatever else happens, you're not responsible for. Are you coming at 4:30? Inshallah, because you've made certain intention, but you're not sure what may happen between that time and now. But what you don't do, na'udhu billah, is when someone says, are you coming? And you've already made it clear that you're not. But you say, Inshallah, as a way to stop them from asking you any further. Because this is kadhib, because you're using Allah's name to lie. You're thinking, I don't really want to go to his house. Brother, are you coming at 4:30? Inshallah. See, this is a lie. Because you know that you're not coming. So why would you hide behind Allah's name when really you should just say, well, I don't want to come? Because you know that you're not coming. So there's no doubt about it because you know you're not coming. Short of something supernatural occurring that might drive you there, you are not coming. Right? Just as much as people will use Inshallah to say, if they're in a discussion and someone wants something, and especially I can say in our Arab culture, this is used often by parents on their children. Could we have such and such? Inshallah. You can't argue with anything. Because it's a non-committal answer. Are we getting new toys this year? Inshallah. That's not really answering the question because you're not committing. You're not saying yes, inshallah, no, inshallah. You're just saying inshallah, which the children, they know they can't argue with Allah's name. Says, well, we don't know. Right? And this is criminal as well because it's using Allah's name as a buffer for action. Just like there's people that will use Allah's name as a buffer for their condition. Well, I can't get a job, so inshallah, no. You have to put in the effort. Then you say inshallah. And sometimes inshallah is used by people as a hindrance for them. So they say, I didn't run the London Marathon because I can't inshallah. It's like, no. You put in all the effort possible. You enter the London Marathon to win. And then if you fail, you say, it wasn't meant for me, inshallah. But you don't not put in any effort at all. Don't expend any effort at all and don't put any endeavor into the matter, any earnest or sincere effort, and then say, inshallah, this is wrong. Because inshallah is about things that you have no certain knowledge of that occur, that you're covering yourself regarding that affair. I should be at your house tomorrow morning. I'm flying out of New Zealand. I should be with you tomorrow by 4:30 p.m. inshallah. Now, as far as you know, you're getting from the house to the airport. It's what happens when you board the flight from Tasmania or New Zealand and you reach Papua New Guinea. You're not sure. As far as you know, you're going to get there. But there could be flight delays. There could be other things. But you don't say inshallah about things that are established facts. Earth is round. That's not inshallah. The sun is 93 million miles from the earth. That's not inshallah. It's an established affair. These things that are established. Right? The Imam rahimahullah, he then says, quote, and Allah has said, and say, it is the case that my Lord will guide me, most certainly. So, it's the case that my Lord will give me the signs and the proofs on prophethood, which show the guidance and give evidence of the sleepers of the cave. And Allah did just that. He gave him knowledge of the unseen as he had to his other messengers. He had clarified the affair of his messenger. So when the Quraysh asked the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to inform them of an affair, and he did not say inshallah, this ayah was sent down as a way to show that inshallah should always be used about affairs that one does not have complete knowledge or control over. So he answered their questions the moment he received the revelation. They remained in the cave for 300 years. Now, in this statement that the 300 years was not the entire duration of their stay in the cave, but was connected to the time as well that they were on earth and the time before. This is one ruling, this is one understanding based upon the expression قُلِ اللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا لَبِثُوا. Allah knows best about how long they stayed in the cave. That was likewise said by Qatada ibn Da'ima, and is also the statement of the people of the book. The second is that it is the time that they remained in the cave, as said by Ubayd ibn Umayr, Mujahid, Ad-Dahhak ibn Zayd. So they stayed according to that time. From the day they entered until the time that Allah resurrected them, it was 300 years. This was their duration. So, the time that they were in there, it wasn't just months, it wasn't days, it was years. Allah didn't say days, He didn't say months, He said years. He didn't say 1 year, He said years. And it was an increase of 9, meaning 9 additional years. Why did He mention 300 years and then 9 right after? Allah knows best about how long they remained therein. The Christians of Najran said that the sleepers in the cave were there for 300 years. And 300 years according to our measurements. As far as 9 years, we don't know anything of this. So Allah sent down, say Allah knows best regarding how long they remained. The people of the book said that from the time those youths entered the cave up until our day has been 309 years. But Allah refuted them by saying, say Allah knows best regarding how long they stayed. Meaning after their souls were taken up until this day of yours. No one knows that other than Allah. So the adding of the 9 years was because there is a conversion between the solar and lunar years. This was mentioned by Al-Mawardi. So, keeping this in mind,
one understands the affair. So, I hear of the matter, and I know, and I see. So here Allah is showing that He knows of the narrative of the people of the cave, because He is behind it. He is the one who has brought it to bear. And they have no certain knowledge, nor should they associate in any of His judgment. It's not permitted by someone to make judgment by other than what Allah is judged with. And it's not for anyone to judge in himself or to declare that there's a partner with Allah in His judgment. This should not be done. And the narration of Ibn Amir, the recitation is وَلَا تُشْرِكْ. Make sure you don't judge by what other than what Allah has sent down. And make sure you don't associate with Him at all in His judgment and legislation. Recite what was revealed to you. The qira'ah, the recitation. And what was revealed to you, meaning follow it. And what was followed was the Quran. Act by it. And act by what was given. And we've already discussed some of this before, the kalimat and these other affairs in Surah An'am, the 6th Surah, 115. And you will not find any change in the words, in His words whatsoever. And you will not find any help or protector besides Him. So there is no one that can protect you from Allah when He brings to bear His affair. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم أستغفر الله إن الله غفور رحيم يرحم الراحمين. Is there a question over what we have covered so far? Yes.
The statement you mentioned about the conversion of the combination of the solar and lunar years, is that the difference? So like 309 and 300, is that the difference? And 309 would be the lunar and then 300 would be the solar.
That's right. That's right. So alhamdulillah, salatu wasalam ala rasulillah. So the question is on the conversion, when Allah says 300 years and then Allah says and He increased it in 9, is this the difference between the Shamsiyya and Qamariya, the solar and the lunar years? Yes. The scholars Al-Mawardi and others have said this is Allah showing you that it's 300 years, but if you count it in lunar years, it's 309. Because there's that hang time, because lunar years pass more quickly than solar years. So it's 309 lunar years, but 300 solar. Well, yeah. Further questions? Question? Yes.
You know the 7 people that were in the cave, were they related to each other? Because some of the separate names, like they rhyme with each other. They're like the brothers of each other. Or...
The question is, were the 7 sleepers of the cave, these youths, were they related to each other because the names sound similar? Alhamdulillah, I don't have an answer for that because I don't know whether they were related. We know they came from the same city, and we know that they left at the same time to go to this place. They were all believers in Allah. It could have been that they were all from one family, that maybe they were all brothers and they were all from one family. But I can't make a definitive statement because I don't have that information. I'd have to research to know for definite. Yes? Question? Yes.
Is there a consensus or difference of opinion about the age that this event took place in?
Question is regarding the age that the 7 sleepers of the cave entered in. Is there a difference of opinion about this matter? Or is there a consensus? Alhamdulillah. When the Christians of Najran asked the Prophet ﷺ, and they said that, well, there's been 309 years from their time up until now, right? Some of them said, no, it's from the time they went in as well as the time from before. And he said, no, Allah knows best about how long they remained in there, which means it's 309 years. The events of Ephesus, the events of Tarsus, and so on and so forth, we have that general framework. As far as the exact time period, we've not been given a lot of details. Now, some scholars have discussed it, and there's sort of 3 main groups or 3 main bodies of scholars that have discussed this matter. And it would be, I think it mainly
this would be something you would cover in the signs at the end of time.
Okay.
That you'd have to go into to say, okay, because they're one of the signs that this has happened, right? You'd have to sort of discuss that in some detail because there's sort of three strands of thought. Someone said this is after Nabiyyuna Isa alayhi salam, because one of his disciples came to him, which we already have mentioned in the Tafsir, that one of his disciples came to him. So these events must have been within his lifetime or just after his ascension. Some say no, it was years after his ascension, and this was the last companion of Nabiyyuna Isa alayhi salam left to reach there before his murder. Or no, it was so many years after he left, and this particular companion came, right? So we're talking about, really, in terms of the three groups, we're talking about the three groups, they've spread their dispute over probably about 100 years, because the last companion of Nabiyyuna Isa alayhi salam would have been sort of coming to the end of his life before murder or death around 100 years.
So it's the time from the coming of Nabiyyuna Isa alayhi salam to 100 years after that.
That's it. So we're looking at 30 to 100 AD.
Okay.
We're looking at about a 70-year span of those three groups of scholars. Besides that, I didn't study into that too heavily, other than to narrate those opinions. Also look at the fiqh of it. But when we come to the signs of the end of time, we'll sort of flesh it out more. And then the dominant, whichever one's dominant, then we can talk about that. No? Final questions? No? So inshallah, we will stop here. We will reconvene next week, inshallah, moving on from that from ayah 28 onwards. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك إنه غفور رحيم يرحم الراحمين.